Welcome to Learning and Language Arts with Mrs. Jones. Today we will be talking about informative writing. We will complete a pre-write by reading text and organizing our ideas. Today's lesson will help us meet our goal in GVC number 1. Students will write essays, both argumentative and informational. At the end of this lesson, you will have identified important information in a nonfiction text and will have completed a graphic organizer to organize your ideas from the text. All right, so let's go over the steps of an informational essay. First, we read the stimulus articles for information. Then we highlight important details. And finally, we organize our thoughts in a graphic organizer. These are the steps of the pre-write, and then of course we will move on from there to write our first draft. When we organize our ideas, we identify the topic and the 3 supporting details, our being, our bang, and our bongo. Our topic for today's lesson and this essay assignment will be ancient Egypt. This is what you've been learning about in your social studies class, so hopefully you've found some things that have been interesting to you. The prompt you will be writing to is to write an essay about ancient Egypt. Use information from the articles you have read in your essay. The 2 articles we will be reading are Ancient Egypt Facts for Kids and Ancient Egypt Trivia for Kids. Both of these articles can be found on Buzzle.com. All right, boys and girls, it's time for you to take your articles and find a spot where you can read quietly. Remember, your first read is just to get a feel for the article, to understand the topic that you are going to be looking into. We'll do a second read later, so go ahead and read, pause, and read. All right, boys and girls. Today, as we do our lesson, we are just going to look at Article 1. Remember, Article 2 has great information and lots of trivia and some fun things in it to support our ideas. So remember, we will use that article in our writing, but just today, for purpose of our lesson, we will just focus on some of the text in Ancient Egypt Facts for Kids. This article is broken down into 3 sections, and we're going to use each of these sections to help us organize our own essay. So the first section is civilization, and we're going to use that to formulate our being. And then the next section is achievements, which we will make our bang. And then finally, Egyptian beliefs and superstitions, which we will have as our bongo. So it is time for you to pause the video for a minute and fold your diamond graphic and then bring it back together so that we can create our diamond graphic. So the first thing we need to do is identify our topic sentence. And a lot of you are thinking, well, I'm writing an essay about ancient Egypt, so I'm just going to tell you about it. And this is what I usually see. I'm going to tell you about ancient Egyptian people. Boys and girls, this is not a great topic sentence. Remember, we're writing for the purpose of our words being read. Okay? And we need to have the person that's reading become interested in what we're telling them. So we're going to throw this out because we're not interested in you telling us about something. Whoops. There we go, throwing it out. So you might say, well, I'm just going to identify what the topic is. So you might write something like this. This essay is about ancient Egypt. Again, it's just not very exciting. I just don't want to keep reading. If this was the first thing I read and I'm not super interested in ancient Egypt, then I probably wouldn't want to continue reading. So what do? Well, boys and girls, we think. You just read the articles, so think about what you thought of them. What do you feel about what you read? Was there anything that was exciting to you? So ask yourself, what do I think about the ancient Egyptian people? Your brain might respond, I think they were pretty amazing. I'm intrigued by the fact that they did so many things a long time ago. Now, I don't know if that's what your brain said, but your brain said something. So use what your brain said in response to that question as you formulate a topic sentence, because you want your reader to be interested in it, so it has to be something that you have a personal connection to. If this is what my brain responded, I might come up with a topic sentence that looks like this. Ancient Egyptians were an intriguing people whose history lives on today. So if I were to read this as your teacher, I would be able to identify several things. First, I know the topic. You've told me that this essay is about ancient Egypt. I'm also wondering what intrigues you about these people. You've told me that they're intriguing to you, so I'm questioning what that is. And also, I want to know if you have evidence to support that the history lives on today. So now that you've created that topic sentence, now you get to find the information that's going to support it and keep the reader involved in what you're writing. So as we talked about before, we had those 3 ideas that were broken down into the sections of that first article. They were civilization, which we will use to create our second paragraph, our being, and then achievements for our third paragraph, superstitions for our fourth paragraph. Remember that we take these ideas, and as we formulate our paragraph boxes, don't forget your transition words. So our being is always going to be the first thing we talk about. And our bang would be something that we would say next or also or secondly. And then, of course, last we'll talk about the superstitions. And I think that would be a fun one to talk about at the end. All right. So let's go back to the text now, boys and girls. We're going to close read the text. We're going to use the article 1, and I've selected just a passage from the section Civilizations. So in this passage, it reads, most of the ancient Egyptians lived along the valley of the River Nile. Scientists believe them to have stayed there since 5000 BC. This is because the land around River Nile was fertile and allowed people to grow crops for food. It also helped in transportation and fulfilled their need for water. So now I'm going to go back and highlight key ideas, key phrases, and key words. Boys and girls, remember this whole section right here is great information. I do not need to highlight the whole thing. I only want to highlight words that will catch my eye when I go back to the text. So I'm highlighting important keywords and phrases, and I'm going to add those important keywords and phrases into my diamond graphic, into my paragraph boxes. Okay, so some of the things that I see that are important to note are that the people lived along the River Nile. And the reason they lived there was to grow crops so that they had a good way of transportation and they needed the water. So these are things that I would add to my diamond graphic. Okay, boys and girls, that is our lesson. You will continue to highlight and identify important key events and keywords and phrases. Add them to your diamond graphic for each of your sections, your being, your bang, and your bongo. Today we identified important information in a nonfiction text, and we completed a graphic organizer. Your graphic organizer will be your practice for this lesson, so make sure that you complete it and turn it into Mrs. Jones. Thank you for learning in language arts, and we will see you next time.